On my clock it's 7:30, so why don't we begin? Let me call to order the November 9 legislative session of Swarthmore Borough Council. I'm glad to see that everybody is here. We've got a nice, robust agenda this evening, and in fact this evening, and then some interesting things the next 2 meetings in December. And after that, you're on your own. But with that, let me first, as part of our public comment, recognize our mayor for some special presentations.
Thank you, Ralph. As a mayor, I have certain prerogatives that I take advantage of once in a while. So what I'd like to do now is tell you a short story. Earlier in October, late in the night of the 10th or the 11th, Alexis Augustine visited her father, who lives in Swarthmore, and they are both members of the volunteer fire company. And Rosie, who was a puppy, needed to go out. So, excuse me, they took her out, and Alexis thought she heard a smoke detector. So they put the dog back in the house and went and investigated, and saw a window in the Colonial Court complex, which was full of smoke. And they, because of their training and their experience, they ran back to the firehouse, called the alarmman, got their gear, went and essentially averted what could be a potential disaster. You know, a complex of apartments, you have a fire kind of thing. Now, what I really want to talk about is not necessarily their actions that night, which were incredibly wonderful, because they're trained firemen. That's what they do, kind of thing. And they did what any other fireman would do in that situation, and have many times. And we can't recognize the volunteer fire company every time they save a house or save a life or whatever, you know, we probably should. But in this case, I'd like to introduce you to Alexis and Dave Augustine. Could you guys come forward? And because I'm so, committed to this idea of volunteer efforts on the part of our citizens is what really kind of makes our borough function. And Dave and Alexis sort of embodied that kind of idea of volunteerism. What they had to go through to train to be firemen, the amount of time that they put into it is kind of amazing in this world, that people still do that kind of stuff. So I think it's important that we recognize people like that for their accomplishments. So I prepared a mayor's volunteer service award, which I'm going to give to Alexis and Dave. So I won't read you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I just say one thing? It was my apartment that was on fire. And because of Alexis, I'm here today. And I just wanted to show you my appreciation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you on behalf of the borough. And Tim, thank you for your leadership and promoting volunteerism and the many other fine attributes that make Swarthmore what it is. Continuing with public comment, are there any other members of the public who have anything at all they'd like to say to Borough Council? Mr. Lee.
Good evening, Council. Rick Lee, Vice President of the Fire Company. Mayor, thank you for that recognition for 2 of our members. It was well appreciated. Just to reiterate, last Monday I spoke to you about our fund drive was mailed out. It wound its way through the Postal Service, and today most people in the borough of Swarthmore finally received our annual contribution request. So again, I would just like to reiterate that we hope that all members of the community support us as Borough Council supports us in our annual fund drive as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have any other comment, any words of advice, wisdom, any subject at all on which you wish to address Borough Council? Hearing none, public comment is closed. Next, under the heading of President of Borough Council, before we get to, well, let's do the minutes first. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last two meetings, October 13th and November 2nd? Is there a second?
I second.
Any comments, corrections? All in favor of approving the minutes of October 13th and November 2nd, please say aye. Next, I'd just like to mention a few things that are coming up. Some are on our agenda this evening and some that we'll be getting to in December. We mentioned last time that the borough was getting 3 flashing pedestrian traffic crossing signs. And I just want to emphasize that as one significant step among many that the borough has taken over the past years to become a more pedestrian-friendly place. And I think when these flashing warning signals are installed, they'll be at the Harvard and Yale intersection, Harvard and Chester Road, and Yale and Rutgers. I think not only will they make those 3 intersections more pedestrian friendly, but I think they'll also serve as reminders to people who drive through our town that this is a town where people walk and ride their bikes, and they don't only travel through on by motor vehicle. And I think that growing awareness is good for all of our residents. And then just on the subject of previews of coming attractions, as you may know, we've had a Aging in Place task force that's worked very hard this year, and at our next meeting on December 7th, they're going to present their recommendations to Borough Council. Those of you who've been following their work have probably seen a draft of their report, which is available on the website, but I think this session on December 7th is going to be very interesting, very useful for Borough Council, particularly for those who remain on Borough Council next year to start implementing and considering those recommendations. And I guess on that subject, congratulations to our returning Borough Council member who was elected and re-elected. David, congratulations. And I see that Ross and Mary are both hiding in the back of the council chamber, but welcome to you, and look forward to your years of service starting in January. So with that, I've said enough. Why don't we move on to our committee reports, starting, Lauren, with Environment.
Nothing this week.
A succinct report.
Yeah, not nothing, but hopefully not too much. First, just like to start with the financial report for the month of October. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look at it. I think, as I mentioned last week, I think basically in last month things are essentially on track, and most importantly, the cash balance that we're targeting at the end of the year as relates to the budget is also on track to right where we expect it to be, and maybe even slightly better. So I think from a financial standpoint, things for the year are coming together as expected, and we ended October with $1,090,480 for the ending cash balance of October 31st. Any questions or comments on the financial report for the month? Okay. Moving on, I'm going to move on now to the bills to pay and checks to ratify. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the wire transfers and checks to ratify. The wire transfers, $3,983.07. and checks to ratify of $61,580.48.
Second. Okay, the motion is to approve the checks and wire transfers. Any comments, questions? Michael, anything that we're aware of? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The transactions are ratified.
Okay, and then next on to the bills to pay, the open invoices totaling $337,286.80 for the month of October. I'd like to make a motion to approve those checks, not to invoices.
Second. There's a motion to approve the bills to pay. Any questions, comments, anything? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
They're approved.
And then finally, I'd like to make a motion for the authorization to advertise the proposed 2016 budget that we discussed in length last week, without any modifications from what we described last week. So unless there's any questions, I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Any questions, comments? And is this, Jane or Bob, maybe I should address the question to you. When it's advertised, do we just advertise the total amount or the millage or
The availability of it.
that it's available
Yeah,
for
for
inspection? And it's, am I right, that it's
You can have
already posted,
summary.
but it's already posted on the,
We haven't put it up, I will put, I'll put it up. Oh, please, we'll put it up tomorrow, yeah.
okay, and it'll be available also in the library and then,
And we traditionally, I
offices.
don't think we're required to, but we usually hold a hearing on it, or at least let people know that, and that will be the first meeting in December.
all right. So the motion is to authorize the advertising of the proposed 2016 budget in the form that was circulated last week. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's approved.
That's all I have, Rob.
Excellent. General government, David.
Ralph, I have nothing major since we met a week ago. We do meet a week from today, the 16th at 8:30 a.m. I have a draft of an agenda. We're going to talk about the update to the street and sidewalk ordinance that has to do with snow removal or blocking over another sidewalk. We're going to talk about the signage that the co-op has requested that would apply to our street signs, or to our street lights. And there might be a bit of a sidewalk update. And you have a bullet point on this agenda, Jean.
Yeah, I mean, we're,
So we're slowly moving the ball forward with everything PennDOT related, which moves at a slow pace. But progress. So, progress.
Right, so actually, we should adopt these resolutions that's under your,
Can we do that tonight?
we can do that tonight. Has everybody got a copy, and they're in the president's hands for signature?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution for the application of the traffic signal approval to PennDOT for our RRFBs. I can use the abbreviation.
Is there a second to the RRFB motion?
I'll second that.
Any questions, comments?
I had a question because at least as they came to me, and I raised with Jane the fact that the application description, as they came to me, do not have any boxes checked as to what kind of device we're looking to
Yeah,
put.
they're blank, they're just blank forms.
Except for the first one.
If you look at it on the computer, you can see what it is.
Yeah, it's on the computer, yeah, and then print it out.
Okay, iPads, that's
Flashing.
fine.
It's an iPad.
It was an iPad, yeah.
Flashing.
I was gonna write it back then,
TCD
yeah.
section 41.
So and are they flashing?
Oh,
Are they flashing all the time?
No.
No, not at all.
It's
They're
when people
activated
push a
and-
button.
yeah.
Manually.
Oh, great,
That was
fantastic.
manual.
That was, yeah, that's great.
And I believe, Jim, we talked about there's a, and it might be a requirement with PennDOT, there's an application to access if you're otherly able. So are they going to be voice activated or push button?
Just push button.
Push button, okay.
And it should be noted too that along with the traffic signal, there'll be a bulb out of the sidewalk at that location, so it will actually narrow and it will calm the traffic and be a narrower area for pedestrians to cross. There was a little concern with the fire company. We did meet with them because Chester Road's already pretty narrow at Harvard, but I met with the engineers. I think we came to compromise.
All
So
right.
Jane, how far will it bump out, just your
It's
approximate?
small,
Yeah.
8 inches or something
But
like
it's
that.
something that'll be noticeable and.
Yes, and you can also
Yeah.
go allowed to paint the curb to make it more
Exactly.
visible.
Right.
Any other comments, discussion? The motion is to authorize the application for PennDOT to approve these rectangular flashing beacons. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's approved.
I assume as they go to PennDOT, the boxes will be filled in so they can read them if they see it in paper.
I have the paper right here, and even I can
Yeah.
Yes.
read
Yeah, they
it.
were already printed out, I don't know what was happening.
Right.
No, I looked at it on my computer, I could see the boxes checked out. When I look at it on my iPad, I can't.
And
So it's,
I couldn't see it on my iPad.
I've seen that before with PDFs, so it's.
Right.
And I would just say it's fitting that Dave's committee is submitting this because in his former life, he worked very hard on the bicycle and pedestrian task force. And while it's taken time, years after those recommendations were in, I think we've continued to implement some
I'm
of the
thrilled to see the
recommendations.
brick and mortar stuff happen. We did some of the easy things first, and like the bike and the school day has certainly been a success, and SRS has embraced that and taken that on.
And I
The
think,
bike motifs on sharing the
The
road.
Sharrows, absolutely, were,
Which, with the money from the grant, the $420,000 grant, we hope to do the shows in a more permanent ink, because of the location in the middle of the road, they just came off really rapidly, so we use a thermoplastic resin, so they will not disappear in a year.
but it shows how important the work of these task forces are, and really to echo the point that Tim made, volunteerism in its broadest sense. It's not just volunteering for a particular activity, but this town is what we make of it. And there are a lot of people who devoted a lot of energy into making it a great place to live. So with that, on to planning. I didn't mean to cut you
no,
short.
I have one more, and Jane might bring it up. The Traffic Advisory Committee is going to meet on December 1st at 8 a.m.
And
Here. And the TAC, for those who don't know, meets as needed. So we have a traffic calming request from Yale Avenue, and we're getting some data around accidents and speed, and we'll talk about it then. It's myself and Jane and Chief Craig.
And it usually ends up in public safety, so if David can attend, that's great.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
attend.
There's quite a few petitioners. It's-
But and it was, I wanted to just kind of put some clarity around it because it was mentioned in the paper, our little hometown paper this week, so that's what that is. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Just on the subject of these signals, do I understand that there is yet to be installed similar devices associated with the roundabout?
There will not be.
So there's not going to be any warning lights for pedestrians at the roundabout?
Correct.
There was money put into escrow, should somebody, I don't know who the somebody was, determine that they were needed.
And that will be when the first person is hit?
It was,
Well, there was a conversation about north of the railroad tracks for a crosswalk to the fields at one point.
that's associated with
For
Cunningham.
the-
Yeah.
It's not parking, it was a different.
Yeah.
Right.
Same time.
We mentioned, David, that having crossed there several times, the pedestrian crossing at the roundabout is actually much easier because it's only one lane of traffic and the traffic is already slowed down. And I've always been able to make eye contact with whoever the drivers are. It's been it's a very safe crossing.
Well, having been to watch the soccer game yesterday, walked back, so I guess that would be the crosswalk at the north side of the roundabout, and had a foot in the roundabout, and there was a person coming who obviously was focused on, not on me at all, but whether there was a car in the roundabout, and this person was going to get into the roundabout before that person got into the roundabout. As the car passed me, I expressed my feelings about her attentiveness or lack of it. But if I had not been paying attention, I could have been flattened.
Definitely paying attention is important
Yes,
for all.
everyone has to-
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that story.
Well, I just hope, it's only a story. One hears never anything else.
Okay.
All right. Planning and zoning, Elizabeth.
Excuse me. I don't have anything particular since last week except to announce various meetings. There will be a planning commission meeting on November 18th, which is Wednesday, 7:30 p.m., and they will be reviewing the land development application for Whittier Space, which is a college project behind Whittier and Elm. I would remind council also in terms of that when we approved the preliminary land development for that project, one of the issues that got punted essentially to final review was the pedestrian crossing at Elm, where Whittier comes out into Elm, which is sort of a semi-mid-block crossing, and also the sidewalk issue of where the borough will want sidewalks to be installed on the south side of Elm. So that would be something that Borough Council will have to keep track of if this comes to them in December. And then there'll be a Planning and Zoning Committee meeting on Tuesday, November 24th, I think it is, at 7:30 a.m. And the last thing I have to say is that Planning Commission is still a little bit up in the air. They've been trying to schedule a special meeting in December on December 9th for the college to bring a resubmission of the college dorm project at the corner of 320 and Harvard. And I think that is actually still not completely fixed. It might slip to their regular schedule of December 16th.
Which would still allow it to come to council in December, which is one of their.
Well, the issue will be that actually council meets before Planning and Zoning Committee meets.
That one from read the third.
Unless-
It's not
Yeah.
December.
But it's, I don't think.
It's before planning and zoning, but it's not before
Right,
council.
exactly.
Right.
Right,
Oh, before.
right.
The committee.
And typically it goes to Planning and Zoning. I don't know what the issues
Yeah.
will end up being. We might look at whether we can, committee members, reschedule Planning and Zoning Committee to an earlier point than our normal.
You'd miss that even if they, anytime in December, so that would be the same issue whether they met.
Yes, it
December
would.
10th
It would
or
not,
17th,
it wouldn't
right.
change between those two.
Right.
Right.
Well, we have 90 days from the first planning commission meeting after they filed, and I don't know where that lands. So, but I don't know.
Oh, it easily it can easily go into January.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's just-
yeah. It's more, we are aware that the college has some fast tracking that they're trying to do in terms of getting construction started on that project. But I think that what I'll do is talk to the college once they have presented it to the planning commission and know which, when it's being presented, and find out how crucial it is for Borough Council to look at it in December or beginning of January. So, anyway, that's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. Let me just echo one point that Elizabeth made, and that is the consideration of the college project off of Elm. I would urge all members to drive by, or even better, walk on Elm. If you're walking, say, from Chester Road on Elm, you go to Cedar, and then the next block is Whittier, and there's no sidewalk on the left-hand side of that last block, and so council will be called upon to decide whether to require sidewalk as part of the approval of that project. And you all, I think we'd all benefit from having a fresh image in our mind.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage wandering out, biking around town or walking the dog or whatever, swing by that way.
Especially in the morning and evening rush hours, that is where there's more traffic on Elm. There's no question that that's a cut through to avoid some of the backups on 320.
And also it's rush hour for a few dozen kids going
Exactly.
to preschool at Swarthmore Friends.
And if I'm, have in mind the area you're talking about, it's a path that college students have to walk to get to a dorm that is.
There is a dorm on that corner.
That is, so I would think the college itself would not be unmindful of any potential risks to some students.
All right, all things to think about for next time. Next, public safety.
Well, things are quiet, at least for now, on the parking front. And with the budget under control, I think same could be said for the police department and for the fire company. So I've got nothing to report. Not only that, we're not going to meet this month. It's so quiet, so.
All right, well, quiet in this case is good.
It's good.
Ralph, if I can, under public safety, could reiterate a concern that David has spoken about in the past, and that is once it has gotten to be dark, joggers and bicyclists. The other scary story is that I was driving up Park Avenue toward Harvard, away from Yale, and unlike many of our fellows, I actually came to a full stop at Harvard Avenue and started out, and two joggers ran right in front of me. This is, I'm in the dark at like 6 o'clock, right in front of me, waved as they went by, each wearing a t-shirt and shorts, nothing that would have indicated, you know, by bike or luminescent marking of any kind that they were out and running. And it was unnerving because they came from my left in the dark. And so I urge, to the extent that this could be publicized in any way, that joggers realize that it is dark and they may not be seen by people who are driving cars in the borough. And for their own safety, let alone the mental health of those who are driving cars in the borough, that they dress appropriately to be jogging after dark.
That's well said. It's true for joggers and for cyclists. And there have been recently some postings, for example, on next door Swarthmore. I don't know if you saw them, David, but by concerned runners to the effect of, you know, it's very easy today to purchase reflective clothing, very tiny but very powerfully bright LED lights can easily be carried. They're not expensive, and you know, just echoing what David said, I think it's a great idea that runners and of course cyclists after dark are required to have that kind of lighting and reflective clothing. And as you say, it's for their own safety as well as the safety and peace of mind of others. So I hope folks take that to heart.
Good point. All right, next, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, David.
Nothing to report. We will not meet this month.
Actually, under your part of the agenda.
Oh, yes,
I
I'm
did
sorry. We
just-
have somewhere buried in all these
They
papers.
they didn't come in, they were,
Are the bids
Is that
for
the sole bid, Jim?
bids
The
for
sole bid 3 years in a
2016
row.
street tree removals?
Are they that good, or everybody else is that disinterested?
I mean, we really couldn't do more. We actually mail packets to electronically to people, anyone who's bid in the last 5 or 6 years. I guess work is good and they just don't want to be bothered. I will note that in this particular bid, in spite of the fact that he might have guessed he was the only person, I have no idea, there was no increase in price from 2015.
Which
so
is
that's
good to
nice.
hear. Which is good to hear.
And they are good. We have
And they're a
relationship
responsible
with them.
bidder.
Yeah.
So we can award this tonight, or is that something? Yes, okay. So I move that we award contract for 2016 street tree removals to Knight Brothers on the terms set forth in their bid.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion, comments, questions?
I would only hope that maybe next year we get a second bid.
It wasn't a second bid last year.
It's just shocking to me that no one is interested. I just signed $10,000 worth of tree removal bills that they made
Yeah.
in the past 30 days, so.
Elise and I were just
Maybe-
talking about that. I mean, we
Maybe
do.
landscapers are listening, or
Swarthmore is a tree city.
I mean,
got
they do have to be insured. You know, we require $1 million policy. That's not particularly unusual, but maybe that's, some people don't want to bid, but
It's not an industry that's used to bidding. I
Yeah,
think. You know,
yeah.
construction industry, that's how you get work, and with tree removal, it's more single calls. I just think they're not in the habit of responding.
yeah.
It's a fair
And
statement.
we do call, but I totally agree with you. It'd be great to get more.
All right, well, for next year, the motion is to approve the single bid received. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The bid is accepted.
Nothing further. Much.
All right, Mr. Mayor, anything else today?
Just that, you know, you really covered kind of two of my sweet spot issues in terms of pedestrian safety in the borough, which I think I'm really looking forward to this work done on these three intersections. And sort of just getting the public awareness together about, I mean, it's still, you know, people still don't understand that they're supposed to stop for pedestrians when they're in crosswalks. And it's, you know, it's a state law, and it's, you know, like David's stories, I still have the other day when I crossed at Rutgers and Yale, I had someone almost run me down and waved at me as they recognized me as, you know,
You missed another mayor.
Yeah, really.
For extra points.
And I was happy to recognize David and Alexis earlier, and it really is true, echoing what you said, Ralph, that it's, volunteers are really the kind of lifeblood of the borough. Nothing against our full-time employees, they're wonderful, and it's, and they, you know, they really make the borough tick, but it's everybody else who really adds to the quality of life issues that we so enjoy.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Jane?
I have a couple of items on the manager's report. I did want to report the Auditor General was here for a pension audit. I just think council and the finance committee is aware. In addition to us doing our own audits every year, the Auditor General audits our liquid fuels funds, audits our pension funds every 2 or 3 years, depending on how often they get here. PennDOT also reviews the liquid fuels funds. So it's important to know that staff has a fairly extensive job getting ready for the audit. The preliminary results of the pension audit are no findings, which is always nice. I never know for sure as it gets run up the flagpole in Harrisburg. Walk to School Days on here, I just wanted to know, which actually it did already. It is really something that the school has embraced. He and I both participated. There were some pictures taken. I think the mayor did. I think the police chief did. It is great to see. We can only hope that at some point they're all walking to school and it's not just once in a while. The kickoff meeting for the DEP Little Pump Creek Restoration Grant. People may remember last year that the Environmental Advisory Council, mostly Tracy Bouvet, applied for and eventually received a grant from DEP to do some study work of Little Pump Creek, mostly around the Swarthmore Swim Club. Actually, none of it is on borough property. A little bit in Springfield Township where they have a retention basin, a little bit on Pico's property where the stream is running through. So we are getting going with that grant. We had a kickoff meeting. This is a grant that it's about an $83,000 grant, and the borough's participation is all in kind, which is great. We also have some in-kind contributions from the neighboring communities. We do have a contract from KCI, who is the contractor. Their name is KCI, sorry, I don't actually know what it stands for. Knowledge, Creativity, Innovation, Technologies. They have asked us to sign a contract. It's been through several iterations of the council president and the solicitor. So I think I would ask maybe Lauren under your committee to allow the president to sign it, subject to the approval of the, just so we have it on the record. So this is actually a final scope of work, cost proposal, and contract provisions for the grant.
Yes.
Or as I just said.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And for clarification, this work is going to be paid for out of
It's an
Grant.
that's right, it's a $79,000 grant. Actually, KCI is donating about $5,000 in services as well. And nothing's happening in the ground, it's all study work. It's hydrology studies, it's survey work, mapping work. They're going to do the permitting, so we know what would be required for that. But the funding of the actual project, which I think will be not inexpensive, is going to have to come from a total other pot of money, not to mention the fact that none of it is on borough property. So it will be interesting for that next phase to see what happens. I think it would be exciting. People probably remember how constrained the channel is in the swim club. It's sitting in that concrete. That's not good. So it would be something that probably restored some riparian buffer, some wetlands within the swim club. So, sort of an exciting project, but a study.
Well, good that someone's.
So
give us
we
some
probably
money to
should get a
study.
vote on that.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
So we just got
All right, so is there a motion to authorize Borough Council President to execute the contract on behalf of the borough?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's approved.
Okay. Just a couple other things. There is still a multi-municipal plan going on, that open space and recreation plan that a grant was received. Another province is actually leading the charge on that, and it is sort of slowly making its way through. I think it should be done in the next 6 months or so. The last thing I wanted to know was there's an LED streetlight control seminar. Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission is working on a group bid to purchase LED streetlights, and they really wanted the borough to participate. I think the borough is seen as sort of a leader in environmental issues, and despite the fact that I'm not totally in love with LED lights, it was interesting to go. Last week I also went and toured the borough of Westchester and their lights at about 6 o'clock at night last Wednesday. And we are, in some cases in the borough, replacing our existing lights when they go out with LED lights. We're trying out different ones and trying to find one that seems to fit our street light mood. They're never going to look like our old mercury vapor lights, but many people prefer them to the high pressure sodium, which are the really orangey lights that get replaced. So we're working on that. We've not.
So how did it look out in Westchester?
It looked just like Swarthmore. They're the globe lights. All the new lights at the underpass are LEDs. Some of them are overheads and some of them are in the globes. They're all LEDs. The LEDs look pretty much like metal halide lights, which is what we have in our town. And the Cobra heads look just like our Cobra heads. Kind of a little grating.
A little what?
Grating. I mean, if you look right over them, they're a little harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it remain the case that even though they consume less electricity, that we get no benefit from PICO for using them? Because we get charged on a per fixture basis?
It costs about $10 a month per light, more or less, is a round number. And of that, $6 is a tap charge. So that means you pay the same no matter whether you've got an old-fashioned incandescent bulb in there or an LED. But the rest of the 40%, there's a significant savings when you go from mercury.
Well-
We report to PICO and they lower the bill. So
And then they have a much longer life, don't they?
much longer.
I mean, they last forever, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of our traffic lights are LEDs and we have replaced none of them. And it's been years. It's quite, it's a great technology that way. So there is a savings. The payback, they now think is about 20 years. If we had a different electric structure, the payback could be as quick as 5 years, but we don't, and it's not changing. So you will see those around town. We use a contractor that names Higgins, you'll see them on our bills all the time. And they're now stocking LED lights, so it's not so complicated to get them. And the price has already dropped down, way down. They walk around $500 a fixture, and you can get them for under $200 now, so that's another nice spend.
Great.
That's it. Exciting world of borough.
Well,
No, thank you, I have nothing to say.
Two quick reminders. One, that our next meeting is December 7th, which will be another interesting meeting, including the Aging in Place Task Force report. And the final meeting of the year will be not the 14th, but the 21st. So those of you who have your calendars on autopilot, just a reminder that we're meeting the first and third Mondays in December. Is there any other business to come before council?
I just have one other thing I forgot to mention. The Finance Committee is not going to meet this month unless something radically changes in the budget. But we are having a pension committee meeting on the 19th at 7:30 p.m. here. Right, if it's interesting.
Okay. Any other business to come before council?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you all.
Thank you.